and it demanded an offer of money to also compensate for the alleged overwhelming reputational and financial harm that she was caused to suffer from his slanderous lies.
And probably soliciting donations from people who've got business before the United States government. And all of this is going to have to be investigated. It will. All of this will have to be uncovered. It will. And these people are going to be held accountable.
Because the Democrats are working overtime to try to hide those facts and to try to distract from the very simple truth here. They want you to forget that just 5 Senate Democrats could reopen the government today.
Melania Trump now hit with a ridiculous lawsuit from this liberal hack called Michael Wolff. Totally dumb. We'll go through it and see what is happening here. But this is the Epstein stuff that they just can't let go. It's the only thing that they have going for them. Their party's in total disarray. Nobody likes them. Their leaders are Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Zohran Mamdani. So they're struggling. So they came out. Michael Wolff is pleading for some relevancy. I don't even know who he is, but he has written a bunch of books, hates Trump, all the things. And Melania, as we've covered here, she sent a bunch of messages out to people like James Carville and others and said, stop making false allegations about my connections to Epstein. They're not true. They don't exist. They're defamatory and slanderous, and you'll be busted. We'll sue your booties if you do it. And so one of those letters also went over to this guy, Michael Wolff. And so he went and hired some ridiculous lawyers called David Korsnick out in New York. And he wrote this into Melania saying, we're suing you and you're summoned to answer this complaint filed in New York. Of course, we've got this one from Hakeem. We have this one from Jolanda, who says she's going to come after your necks, I guess, if you're a Republican. And the list just goes on and on. So they're scrambling until we get to Fetterman, who has a little bit of sanity left in his brain. But this one was one attack from Michael Wolff against Melania. They say, remember, back on October 15th, Melania, through her lawyer, demanded that Michael Wolff immediately retract certain statements that he published about her. Now, the letter from Melania said that Wolff better immediately issue an apology for false, defamatory, and inflammatory misleading statements about Melania. And others did. James Carville's like, sorry about that. And it demanded an offer of money to also compensate for the alleged overwhelming reputational and financial harm that she was caused to suffer from his slanderous lies. Now, this threat letter, they said, which was a cease and desist, insisted that if Wolff did not comply by October 21, she's going to initiate legal damages, a lawsuit for $1 billion. And he doesn't have that for sure. So she was going to sue him. And so he's like, I'm going to sue you first. The threat letter was made pursuant to Florida law, which is why he's going and suing in New York. He wants to get ahead of this. Trump and her, quote, he writes, his lawyers, unitary executive husband, in quotes. Like, what does that even mean? Along with their MAGA myrmidons, well, that's a fancy word. It's a $4 word if I ever saw one. Wow, these lawyers must be really smart and expensive. And it's just idiotic, really. I mean, you should talk plainly and clearly to communicate your message. This is weird. Have made a practice of threatening those who speak against them with slap actions, saying Melania is trying to intimidate us and extract payments with North Korean-style confessions and apologies. So dramatic. The letter lists some of those things that they have pressed into unjustified submissions, and we're not going to buckle. Now, these legal actions are designed to create a climate of fear in the nation, so people can't exercise their First Amendment rights and shut down legitimate inquiry into Epstein. Now, Wolff is a journalist who has done his job diligently, and he reports what he knows, identifying what he doesn't. And so now he's got no choice but to defend himself. And this letter is now showing that there is an actual controversy, and they entitle Wolff to legal fees and punitive damages. Now, he's also entitled to a declaratory relief that he can say these things referenced in the letter because A, the statements are true, he says. Wow, right? And so we'll have to maybe litigate some of this. Mrs. Trump's claims that they are false lack a substantial basis. These are also opinion and hypotheses. And Trump's claims that they're not matters of opinion also lack basis. They're also not made with malice. And Melania's claims to the contrary don't have any basis in fact. And so by her threat letter, we're now suing her. Subpoenas are going to go out to those who frequented or who are part of Epstein's circle, including Trump. We'll see. Now, the parties, Mr. Wolff is an experienced journalist, and he's got New York Times bestsellers, which means you know they're terrible. And he's done many interviews of Jeffrey Epstein, and now is really animated about it because Trump's involved. Was pretty quiet about all this for the prior years, the Democratic Party, and now he's suing. So venue is in New York. They say he's a journalist. He's appeared on podcasts. He was on the Daily Beast, and the statements that he's made, libel, are in 3 categories. He went on the Daily Beast. He said, yeah, Melania is very involved in the Epstein scandal, saying the First Lady has avoided the topic, but she was acting behind the scenes. And she says that's a defamatory implication. He says, well, I can imply whatever I want. So he sues and is referencing the defamatory statements. He says, no, actually, it is true. You were very involved in the Epstein scandal. The statement's taken out of context. And I was saying that since you're married to Trump, you're managing the response. Okay, so that's it. So he's going to say, well, no, it's technically true. She is very involved. She's helping him respond to it. When you're implying that she was involved in the underlying scandal, the scandal is about the Epstein originating scandal, not the underlying response to it or the actual response. It's not defamatory to say that she was involved in the expansive circle. I didn't write the headlines either way, and Trump cannot prove them to be untrue. And I didn't act with any actual malice at all, saying that she could be the missing link. So I'm not claiming it's true. It's not defamatory to say that she could have information about her husband, and she can't prove that I acted with actual malice. His whole life is actual malice. She was also very involved in the social circle, and he says the statement's true. She was a model, and she was hanging around all these people. There's photos and more. So she can't disprove that. She's a modeling agent. And also, Wolff apparently alleged that Trump liked to blank his friends' wives and was on the Lolita Express with Melania. He says that statement is true, and they can't prove that it is not true. That's a pretty big one. Tapes recorded by Wolff. Yeah, so we'll see what comes out with that one. It's not defamatory. He can say, I say that happened. The fact that they were on Epstein's jet doesn't change that fact. And where does Melania fit into the Epstein story? Where does she fit into this, in this whole culture of indeterminate age? He says, I can ask all these questions. And so he's suing, and we're excited to see what Melania's response is on this. So the first count 2, declaratory anti-SLAPP laws, so New York stuff. SLAPP is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. So it's saying that she is trying to stop, like to basically censor him from speaking before he's speaking. And there's anti-SLAPP laws that prevent that from happening. So he's suing in New York, and it's obviously it's a great jurisdiction for him, not such a good jurisdiction for Trump. So that's smart. And he's trying to get ahead of it from David Korzanik, who writes weird demands. But meanwhile, Democrats are also coming out against the White House and making other threats, saying here from Hakeem, if you were even involved in this construction, we are coming after you too. These people are going to be held accountable, he says. Anyone who is working with Trump to build this building, you're busted.
Any executive authority. And more likely, this is part of what Donald Trump has been doing since day one of his presidency, running the largest pay-to-play scheme in the history of the country, and probably soliciting donations from people who've got business before the United States government. And all of this is going to have to be investigated. It will. All of this will have to be uncovered. It will. And these people are going to be held accountable, no matter how long it takes. That's going to be the reality of the situation. And that's our warning to all of these people participating in this scheming to manipulate taxpayer dollars and, of course, to destroy the people's house. The White House belongs to the American people. It doesn't belong to Donald Trump.
He's expanding the White House for the people's purposes so that they can actually have good events and galas in there. And Obama spent, I think, $310 million of the American people's dollars in order to revise his White House with the basketball court and all the things. So it's quite a double standard. And I'm not sure if he's going to go after the construction workers or the dude who's running the jackhammer or what, but they're very upset about this because they realize that this is Trump building something. Once we get past this little demo phase, everybody knows the demo phase is terrible. But once you've got a brand new building and a brand new kitchen or whatever, it's like, okay, it's pretty nice. Glad we went through that. And so when it is finally done, they're going to realize they're in big trouble because Trump is building, and it's just indicative of the energy that's coming out of the White House, not only there in DC, but everywhere else too. So here is another Democrat who is just absolutely nuts. And honestly, the CNN anchor is just as nuts for not calling her out on this right after Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck, right after Irina Zarutska got sliced in the neck, right after we have illegal alien CDL drivers murdering other citizens driving on the roadways peacefully and patriotically. Here is this woman called Jolanda, and apparently she's a Democrat from Texas on with CNN, and here's what she sounds like.
I'm from the hood, okay? So when a bully comes, like, if there are no rules, you literally have to figure it out. So Donald Trump has changed things, and people trying to do what's always been done is not going to work. And I think that's why Democrats are losing black people. That's why they're losing poor people, because poor people, all they want is for us to fight. So if you hit me in my face, I'm not going to punch you back in your face. I'm going to go across your neck.
Dang.
Because we can go back and forth fighting in each other's faces. You've got to hit hard enough where they won't come back. And so, yeah, for the same way I went to New York and spoke with Governor Kathy Hochul and said, if they're going to try to wipe us out in Texas, we need to wipe out every Republican in New York, in California, in Illinois. So no one can make me feel bad about fighting for the people that I represent, because the people that I represent need someone who's willing to go in the ring and fight fight for them. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
So, Representative, in that context, the reality of the world is we are living in a moment where, yes, there's a shutdown going down, and Democrats on Capitol Hill are standing up for that in the way they think is working. But
okay, so just talking right through it, like she never even said it. Like, do you think it's appropriate after people are literally having their necks shot off and their throats slit on buses that you would use the neck commentary? You mean politically, right? Obviously politically, right? Not like violently. But that's the Democratic Party, really not any different than the AG candidate in Virginia who is celebrating the death of his political opponents, kids and wife and family. It's just who they are, and they want to slice necks, and they will do it, as we've seen. They'll shoot their own people in the heads and in the bodies out of ICE facilities. So we also see that one Democrat is not as far gone as the rest of them. His name is John Fetterman. He's a Democrat from Pennsylvania, and he's saying these people are nuts, man. Even Kamala lost the plot back during the last election. Here's John.
I don't know why, and I've always refused to say that. And when then the Vice President Harris referred to President Trump as a fascist, and I knew absolutely we lost the plot at that point. You know, if you call the president or someone like a fascist, you're effectively calling the people that are going to vote for him, and then they must be fascists too, or they support fascism and those things. And that's just not true. That's just not it. I happen to know, and I love a lot of people that voted for the president, and they're not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and all those things. They just happen to have a different priorities, and they love our country in the same ways that Democrats do as well. So I refuse to do those kinds of a thing, because that kind of extreme kinds of rhetoric makes it easier for those kinds of extreme kinds of actions, even like what happened to poor Charlie Kirk and that. And now why you can't allow people to grieve and now use that an opportunity to criticize or to turn it into something. It's
because
like
they're monsters,
it's just basic humanity there. And like, we are forgetting that we need each other here. And now I refuse to be a part of it and comparing people to Hitler and those things. If that's what's required to win, then I refuse to.
Amazing. What a normal Democrat. Be nice if the rest of the party sounded like that, but they don't. Not even close. They're kind of crazy. Where's your humanity? John, they're Democrats. They don't have any. That's why they're Democrats. So Mike Johnson was also out today responding to a lot of this. He is communicating this. He's talking about the economic real pain that the Democrats want to deliver, but it's much deeper than that. They want physical pain as well.
The reason that my colleagues and I have come in here every morning now during this painful Schumer shutdown is because we have to share the facts and we have to share the simple truth with the American people. And why is that? Because the Democrats are working overtime to try to hide those facts and to try to distract from the very simple truth here. They want you to forget that just 5 Senate Democrats could reopen the government today. All we need is 5 of them. They try to pretend that their counter-proposal deal doesn't reinstate free health care for illegal aliens.
It does.
$200 billion of taxpayer funds. They try to pretend that their counter-proposal would not send billions of dollars wasteful spending for social projects in foreign countries overseas. They don't want you to look at the facts. They don't want you to look at the paperwork that they themselves filed as the counter-proposal. And they refuse to admit that this entire shutdown is one big political game to satisfy the radical Marxist base of their party. But that is exactly what is going on. I want to be absolutely clear about this. Democrats would not have shut the government down this time if their political careers did not depend on it. And that is not some Republican talking point. That is the objective truth. If it wasn't already abundantly clear, the number 2 Democrat in the House yesterday openly admitted to that fact. Catherine Clark is the House Democrat whip. She works right under Hakeem Jeffries as the number 1 Democrat, and she was in an interview and she said to one of your colleagues sitting here on the front row, quote, "Of course there will be families that are going to suffer, but this is one of the few leverage times we have," unquote.
It's not any different than what the AG candidate said. People will only change their policies if they feel real pain. And in his case, he wanted dead family members and consequences from and against cops and things like that, because he's a maniac. But the Democrats are doing it. It's just part of their philosophy. And so they're going to make it hurt for the American people in order to get their way, which has always been their MO. Doesn't matter what it was. It was COVID, remember? They're going to make it painful for you unless you go and inject that into your body repeatedly. Okay, you're a bad person and you're going to kill everybody unless you do it. And there will be consequences for you if you don't. And if you even challenge it, if you speak out about it, then we're going to censor you, we're going to cancel you, we're going to silence you. Even though you're right about everything, we're still going to shut you up. Just how they operate. Not anymore. And so Melania will be responding to the lawsuit, no doubt about it. We'll keep our eye on that filing when it drops and hopefully have you join us as we do.